Good evening, all. Today we'll discuss this idea of reciprocal lattice. So in this video, we'll see why we need this idea of reciprocal lattice. Why we are introducing this idea, and then obviously what it is. We need to know what it is, and maybe you have heard that this reciprocal lattice is a Fourier transform of this real space. We'll have a qualitative idea what it means. Okay. So these are why, what, and why is it called the Fourier transform of the real space. So let's begin. Say you have some screen with two. Okay, sorry for the drawing. Some screen with two slits in it, and you want to find the distance between these two slits. Say that distance is a. What you can do is like you can take a small scale, a centimeter scale or something, put it side by side, and then note the readings and measure it. Like you'll get some measurement, like say 1 centimeter, 10 millimeter, or some both the same actually. So some millimeter scale or centimeter, that measurement you can get. But what if this distance A is in some very small range, say micrometer, say we'll go even smaller, nanometer or angstrom. We can obviously use some measuring device like a scale or anything like that. So we will need some other method to measure this distance. The first one that comes to mind is that we can use a microscope. We'll use a microscope. We'll put it here, close side by side, and then we'll look into it and we'll zoom. After a magnification M, say we get a distance. We project it into the screen and then we measure the distance. We get some measurement, say 1 centimeter between these dots, and you know the magnification. So from this, you can actually calculate the distance, actual distance between these dots. That's one method. But there are some drawbacks with this method. That is like you'll have to have, first of all, you'll have to have a microscope for that measurement. So that has to be like really sophisticated microscope or something, because you need to resolve for 1 nanometer or on angstrom. That's not a silly thing to do. And then another issue is that maybe this whole thing won't be able to fit in this microscope. So you can't actually fit in the whole thing into microscope, and you can't measure it. So there are some drawbacks and limitations in using a microscope. So you need to have some other method. Okay, obviously to see this thing, you'll have to have some light source. Some light has to fall, otherwise you won't be able to see the slits, right? Okay, so there is a drawback in using microscopes. So we'll need some other method. What methods are there? There is a simple method. You put another screen over here and shine some light. What will happen? Interference, isn't it? So the first bright spot will occur here, and some other bright spot will occur here at a distance x. Okay, using this you can actually measure the distance. Say this particular distance is d. You know this x. There is a relationship connecting this a and x value. So if you can measure this x value, then you can actually back calculate to the value of a. So I'll just come to that in a moment. I'll just explain it a little more. So this shows the exact setup. This one shows the exact setup. Like we have a screen and two small slits. You shine a light there, and you get this bright spots. This is a central bright spots, and this is the first one. Okay, so we call this distance, particular distance, x. This is x, and this slit distance is a. Say it's nanometers. So say this occurs at an angle theta. So the first bright spot occurs at an angle theta, and from this large triangle, if this whole distance is this separation between this screen with the slit and the observation screen is d, then obviously this tan theta, you can just, it's a simple calculation. Tan theta is x by t, isn't it? Now we consider the small triangle here, some geometrical considerations. You can also see that this small angle is theta as well. So say this distance is delta. For this constructive maxima to occur, this is basic plus 2 stuff. So the constructive maxima to occur, the path difference should be a multiple of lambda, n lambda. Say this, we are using yellow light here, so that lambda value, you know, so it has to be integer multiple of n. N can take values 1, 2, 3, or minus 1, or no, not minus 1, obviously, 1, 2, 3. It will work mathematically though. So put it like that. So this sine theta from the small triangle is n lambda. N here we are observing this first maxima, so n should be 1. So n lambda by a. For small angles, these small angles, if d is really large, this theta should be really small. So sine theta is approximately equal to tan theta. Okay, because tan theta is sin theta by cos theta, and cos theta is merely 1 for this small angles. So you will have an approximation. So x by d is equal to n lambda by a, approximately. Fine. So there is a relationship. Already we have a relationship. So we need to have the value of x. X is equal to 1 by a n lambda times d. So what was our aim? We actually wanted to measure the distance a, the separation between the slits a. So we shine some light over here with wavelength lambda, and we put a screen over a distance t and measure this particular distance between this central maxima and the first bright spot. So from this x value, you can actually calculate back the value of a. You don't know the value of a, but you can measure this x value. Say first we shine with some smaller wavelength. Say there is a wavelength dependence, right, for this x. For some wavelength, this x is too small to measure. So we increase the wavelength. So for some particular wavelength, this x can be actually measured using a centimeter scale. You don't need a fancy microscope. You just can use a centimeter scale that you have. All you have to have is a simple source of light. You can use a laser. It's readily available, not so expensive thing. Shine some light, observe this pattern using a centimeter scale, and then back calculate. Lambda value, you know, so you can calculate. If we have some idea of this lambda a value, say we know it's somewhere in nanometer range, maybe it's like 1.2 nanometers, or say about 20 nanometers, something like that. So if you know some knowledge about this nanometer, like what range, what order it comes in, we can use, if you use like a comes in almost the same order of magnitude lambda, then this x only will depend on this d value. Okay, so it's better to use this a value as somewhat similar to this lambda value. Sorry, the lambda value somewhat similar to that of a value. That's better to use to measurement. Okay, otherwise these spots may occur like really small distance, so we can't measure that. Even measuring also a first purpose. Okay, so it's better to use a lambda value that's closer to this a value if you have some approximation. Otherwise, you have to play with it. You have to throw in some light of some lambda. If you see that it is too small to measure, you can actually increase the wavelength. If you increase the wavelength, this x will increase. Okay, so the important takeaway from here is that look at the relationship between x value, the distance between these spots, these bright spots, and the a value. As the separation between the slit decreases, this x value actually will go up. It will go up. It will move away. If you're decreasing this a value, this will move up. Okay. And in case like if we are increasing it, if the slit separation is increasing somehow, if the slit separation a is increasing somehow, this x value will come down. So you can notice a reciprocal relationship between these things. That is ax is proportional to 1 by a, or a is proportional to 1 by x. Both mean the same thing. Okay, note that there is a reciprocal relationship. Now we move into the case of atoms in crystals. So for simplicity and for better understanding, I'm only considering a 2D crystal. Actually, in reality, crystals are all 3D. Okay, there is 2D material, so we are not considering that. Okay, so we have this thing. So in this case, each point is an atom. Each point is an atom. There is a plane. So there will be a plane. These atoms extend like this. Okay, so we are not considering that though. This case is exactly similar to that the first case, this slit case, because what actually this slit does is like we shine some light, and these slits actually act as some secondary source of light, isn't it? So in this case, if you shine some light, these atoms will absorb this light and they'll re-emit. So this slit case and these atoms behave exactly the same mathematically. So they should be, even physically they behave the same. So mathematically they should obey the same rules. So if we shine some light, this acts as slits, and say the distance between two atoms in this bright atoms is a. So it will form a diffraction pattern here. You can actually measure this distance x. So if you know x, using this equation, you can back calculate what is the distance between these atoms in vertical lines. Okay. So the only thing that depends is not what atom it is, but what is the separation between these atoms. Okay, so we can just completely ignore what atoms there are and only consider these lines there. We see only these lines, and due to this separation between these lines, these parallel lines, we get these dots here. So the only thing that depends on the separation between these dots is the separation between these lines. So in 3D case, it will be planes. In 2D case, it's just lines. Okay, this is exactly similar to that of a diffraction grating. I don't know how this white dot came in, just ignore it. So we only consider this lines here, the light falls on it, and we get a diffraction spots. So as this separation between these lines goes down, this X value, the separation between these diffraction spots, that will increase. And if, and vice versa. Okay, but there is one more thing that we have to consider when we look into this case of atoms. Each atom acts as a slit, right? So there is we only consider the lines in the horizontal plane. So there is a atoms. I'll just put it in some other color. One second. I'll go this color. Okay. Say there is this plane as well, this plane as well, this plane as well. So for this plane, if we shine some light, the dots should appear in this particular direction. So I'll explain why that is the case. I'll show you something, because it's whatever we do this to this plane, the real space, that will reflect in this reciprocal space. I'll show you what it means. Look into this picture. So in here we have this lines in horizontal direction, and we shine a light, and we get the spots here. Okay, what do you think will happen if you rotate this crystal as a whole? So if you rotate the crystal as a whole, whatever thing that we do to this particular real space, that will happen in this diffraction space as well, right? So in initial case, these lines were all horizontal, and these spots actually appeared perpendicular to the planes. So if you rotate this, and now you see what happens. So now all the lines or the planes are vertical to the vertical directions, and still these dots will appear horizontal, like perpendicular to the lines, the parallel lines. Okay, now let's get back. So that's what happens here. So now we have some other additional set of planes here, coming like this. So the dots corresponding to that will appear like this in horizontal plane. So whatever the plane that diffracts, the dots will appear perpendicular to that. For the first one, the A separation was in horizontal direction. So we had this white spots, and this is vertical. There is a set of other vertical lines. So for that, the dots will appear perpendicular to that. That's like in the horizontal direction. Okay, but so if say this distance is B, then this separation will be proportional to 1 by B. Okay, and this particular separation, this separation will be proportional to 1 by A. Okay, so I have shown that in these pictures, like we have this vertical and horizontal planes, and we have this force. But that's not the end of the story. We can actually consider some other planes as well. Say this is our dots. This is our crystal. This is our crystal. Say, so this is our crystal. So we have considered only horizontal planes and vertical planes, right? This was a horizontal planes, and these dots will appear in this particular direction. And the separation between these dots is actually inversely proportional to the separation between these white planes. So if we consider some other color, I don't know why this is not appearing. Okay, leave it. We'll stick with this. So this vertical lines are coming. So this is another plane. So for corresponding to that, these dots will appear perpendicular to the planes. So this is the perpendicular planes. It will appear like this. Dots will appear in the screen perpendicular like this. And the separation will depend inversely on the separation between these blue lines. So that's not it. We can consider some other planes as well, right? So there is this plane, this particular vertical plane. So these two planes are not similar because the atomic arrangement is different. So we will have some other plane. Okay, so this will be same. We have this set of planes. So it's this, the dots corresponding to this plane will be coming perpendicular to this plane and will be inversely proportional to the separation between these green lines. So that will be appearing like this. Fine. So like this, we can consider additional planes. We can consider this particular plane, and there'll be some dots corresponding to that, and that separation between these dots will be inversely proportional to the separation between these planes, or in this case, lines. Okay. So what we obtain, what information do we obtain from this? That is we can actually know the interatomic spacing. So we can actually observe this particular pattern. If we shine some light into crystal, we'll get a pattern of dots as shown in this figure. We'll get a pattern of dots, and from this we can infer the distance between atoms actually. So this vertical spacing will give, if we can measure this x, that'll tell us what the value of A is. Take the inverse and do some math. We'll get this inverse, and measurement of this thing will give the separation between these lines. Okay. So another thing is, like, say we have a set of some square lattice, simple cubic, something like that. So say this is like in 2D case, there is no simple cubic, there is simple square lattice, say. So we consider the what will be the diffraction pattern for this one. So there is this plane running like this. So that plane corresponding to that plane, that is a different column. This blue planes are here. So the dots will appear here. Just as I mentioned, these dots will appear perpendicular to that particular plane that we're considering. Then we had this green plane, and we had this particular set of dots, and this distance between these dots actually depends on the inverse of the separation between these planes. Fine. So that is, so we have a definite pattern for this particular plane. So there will be some other planes that we can consider. Say the structure is different. Now the structure says body centered what simple square lattice. Then once we introduce these new atoms, there will be new planes coming into play. So this is a new plane, and this will be a new plane. These two planes are not identical because the placement of atoms is different, right? Placement of atoms is different. So this will be okay. So there will be new dots appearing in this pattern compared to the earlier simple square lattice. So the pattern, that diffraction pattern that we get, the number of dots and arrangement of dots, the separation between dots, all will vary depending on where these atoms are present. Okay. So we know that if we have two crystals, say we have two crystals, A and B, and we shine some light and we observe what happens. We observe the dots in this. Sorry for the drawing. So we shine some light and we get some, say we get some particular dots. I'm just drawing the cross section. We get some dots in B crystal as well. If both have the same pattern, like the distance between the atoms, dots are same, and the arrangement of dots are same, the pattern of dots are same, then we can say that the crystals A and B are same. If there is some difference, we can actually understand what there is a difference between the real lattice space of these crystals. So okay, so that's why we use diffraction, and we can actually, from this distance, from the distance between these poles, we can actually say what is the distance between these atoms, and we can actually say whether it is a simple cubic, or in 3D crystals, the case of 3D crystals, is it monoclinic? It's what Bravais lattice. It's this diffraction force actually tells us what Bravais lattice it is. Okay. So I hope you got some idea. So we'll okay. I'll tell you why the other portion, like why is it called. Okay. So the main point is this is our real lattice. This is our real lattice, and this is our, these dots are our reciprocal lattice. Okay, these dots, what we get, we shine some light in the real lattice, and what we get in the screen, that is a reciprocal lattice. And why we need a reciprocal lattice, and why we call it a reciprocal lattice, is because The separation between atoms actually depends on inversely on the separation between the dots in reciprocal lattice actually is inversely proportional to the separation between atoms in real space. Okay, there is kind of a reciprocal relationship. That's exactly why we call it a reciprocal space. And why we need it? Because you can't actually measure. You actually wanted to measure this separation between atoms and the arrangement of atoms. You can actually, it is actually possible to use a microscope, like you can use electron microscope or something, but it's not convenient, very convenient to use that electron microscope here to get the knowledge of the structure of this atom. So it's better to use some lights so that is comparable to this atomic separation. So we use X-rays. X-rays, the wavelength of X-rays come in the range of this interatomic separation in most cases. So we will look into this pattern, and for each crystal, say simple cubic, orthorhombic or something, anything. For each crystal, there will be unique pattern of dots here. So we can know by looking at this pattern, we know what crystal it is, and looking at the separation between these dots, which actually calculate the separation between these atoms or atomic planes. Okay. So that's the idea behind reciprocal lattice and why we need it. Fine. So another thing that I told you is like these are the real reciprocal lattice is Fourier transform of real space, isn't it? So why that? Say this consider this picture. There is one atom. There are like a lot of atoms here. So we shine some light. We shine some light. The light falls here, and it hits the screen. Okay. Likewise, there is some other item here, some other item here. This picture that's I'm redrawing here. I'm only considering two atoms here. So this light comes from here, falls here, and makes diffraction source here. Okay. So there is one term that describes how the light comes from here to here, and there is another term that describes how light goes from here to here. This slit of the atom to the screen. So we don't need that actually that. These are actually simple wave equations. So say some light falls here, so that light will re-emit like kr minus omega t. This will be the phase of that light. If say this atom is emitting some light and this is our origin, say we measure the r from here, we measure the r from here, and we know the phase at here, phase at here. That is like that will be on this particular distance and what source is here. Okay, so this is not really important. So we only need this portion. So if you know the phase of this wave that is coming in at this point, that is like we have a wave and it's waving, it's moving. So if we know this is a high point, and we can actually know what will be the value at a particular distance here, right? At a particular distance r from here. That this is what it actually means. So this is origin and this is at a distance r. You know what phase this light will be emitting, and this will travel from here to here. That time we can include in this p, and what change, like what the space at r, that we can include in this term a. Okay, so this is it. So to get the diffraction spots here, we'll have to consider say this particular thing. So this for this port or any spot, this will have to have an interference between all the atoms. There is a contribution from all the atoms, isn't it? So we'll have to add the contribution from all the atoms. So another aspect we know, say if we consider only 1D atomic chain, only one direction, so there is a particular term called N of R. So the only these atoms will radiate, right? If when light falls on this, only the atoms will radiate. So say this is some measurement of this N of R is some measurement of this electronic density or something. So that because that electrons are what actually reflects the light, isn't it? So this can be, say this is the origin, this is 1, 2, -1, -2, goes like that. So N of 0 will have some value because there is an atom. N of 1 will have some value, same value actually, it's periodic because it's the same atom. It will have some value. So I have already used this A value, so I'll put some other value, Y, say, some particular value. So N of 0.2 will be 0, mostly 0 or near to 0 because there is nothing to reflect. Okay, so whether this sheet reflects or not depends on this function N of R, and N of R actually denotes whether the atoms are placed. So the total diffraction, the total sum of light that comes over here is a sum of all the light emanating from all these points. We have to include all the points. So A actually tells how this light travels from here to here, how the phase changes here. And B actually tells how the light travels from here to here. That's also a phase plane, B. And e raised to ikr minus omega t tells you how it changes between atom to atom from here when we move around atoms. And n of r tells where these lights are, where the atoms are placed. Okay, and you have to sum over the whole thing. So we integrate here. So if you do some algebra, we can see that the only term that remains here is ikr, and there will be some other term a b e raised to minus I omega t, some term will be there, and dr will be there. So this is actually the amplitude of this particular way. So we will take the square of it. Like say we have a complex number z, we take the multiply with the complex conjugate, and we'll get a particular value r. So okay, so like that. So this complex part, this has a complex part, this has a complex part, this is a complex part. So that will cancel out. I'm not going into the detail because we just need the qualitative idea. So we'll have ikr dr. Okay. So there is this n of r term. N of r term. So this is what the diffraction pattern that what we observe here. So n of r tells where the atoms are placed. It actually captures the periodicity of atoms where the atoms are placed, and d raised to ikr captures the phase difference in when we move along this atomic plane. And here we integrated the whole thing to get the diffraction spot here. Okay, so if you know this equation, this actually resembles that of the Fourier transform equation, n of r e raised to I k dot dr. So this actually gives the intensity of this atom. Intensity at each point, this space, n of k. Okay, that's why we call it the the Fourier transform of real space. That's why what we do is like we actually calculate the diffraction. What is the intensity of the spots appearing here? What is the intensity at a particular point in this screen? Okay, so that by doing some math, we can actually show that this is actually the Fourier transform of the real space. That's why we actually call the reciprocal lattice is actually the Fourier transform of real space. Okay, so we'll need that in a later lecture. Then we'll come into more detail about that. So you now understood why it's called a reciprocal lattice and what a reciprocal lattice is and what information we need and why we need it. Okay. So we consider this particular case then. One second. Okay. So so the important points were like if there is some plane that is reflecting, some plane that is refracting, the reciprocal lattice points that will appear perpendicular, or the diffraction spots will appear perpendicular to that plane. So this is the real space and this is the reciprocal space, and this particular distance will be inverse of this particular distance. Okay, so if there is some other plane like this, say there is some other plane like this, so the dots will appear perpendicular to this plane, and the separation will be inverse of this particular distance. So one more case, like say there is some plane like this, and the diffraction spot will appear perpendicular to this, and likewise the distance. Okay, so how do we say it mathematically? Say now we consider this particular set of real lattice. This is a real lattice, this is a real lattice, and this is a reciprocal lattice. This is a real lattice and this is a reciprocal lattice. So we want to find the reciprocal lattice vectors or reciprocal lattice points corresponding to interatomic separation of A1. So what is the planes that correspond to this interatomic separation of A1? So the interatomic separation vector is A1. So this will be the planes corresponding to the interatomic separation A1. Okay. So what will be the direction of the spots? The direction of spots should be perpendicular to these planes. So what is the perpendicular to these planes? This will be coming like this. You can see the direction of B1 here. And how will it depend? What it depends is if the separation between this thing is D, then this value of B1 will be proportional to 1 by P. That is the separation between these particular dots. these two dots, the value of this separation or distance between separation will be inverse of this particular planar separation. Okay, so that's it. Now, what about this A2? The planes corresponding to the separation vector A2. So the planes corresponding to separation vector A2 is these planes. And where will these spots appear? The spots will appear perpendicular to these planes. Okay, that is B2. That is B2 here. And the separation vector, the magnitude of this B2 will be inverse of this planar separation. Okay. So one thing to note is that this B2 vector, so this is a B2 vector. So this B2 vector is always perpendicular to A1 vector. Why is it that? Because our separation vector is A2, right? Separation vector is A2, and then the planes will be parallel to A1. The planes, if the separation vector is A2, the planes are parallel to A1. And the dots will be always appearing perpendicular to the planes, which means always the diffraction spots, or reciprocal lattice points corresponding to A2 separation will be perpendicular to A1. I know that's a bit to understand. We have to give a bit thought about it, and then you will understand. Okay. This is a case with the other as any separation vector as well. Let's say we are considering the separation vector A1. The planes will be running like this. The planes will be running like this, and these planes will be parallel to A2, as you can see, parallel to A2. And this dots, I mean reciprocal lattice vectors A1 dots, this B1, these points will be perpendicular to the planes. So that means it will be perpendicular to A2. Okay. So the reciprocal lattice vectors of separation vector A1 is only parallel or somewhat aligned in the direction of B1, and it's perpendicular to both B2 and if there is a B3, that B3 as we say there is some other vector that's coming out of here, A3 in the third direction. Okay. So the takeaway is, if you're considering B1, if you're considering B1 vector, its magnitude will be inversely proportional to the magnitude of A1, and it should be perpendicular to both A2, and if there is an A3 in the third dimension, that will be perpendicular to A3. So we have to have the direction. So A2 cross A3 we consider. So A2 cross A3 will be perpendicular to this this A1 A1 anyway. Okay. So sorry, the A2 cross A3 will be perpendicular to both A2 and A3. So that's it. And we only need the direction. So we consider A2 cross A3 and we take it out product here. So this will give the direction of B1. So if we consider B2 vector, this will be, the magnitude will be inversely proportional to the interplanar separation. So here the interplanar separation is defined by A2 vector. So it should be per A2 and it should be perpendicular to both what? A1 and A3. So A3 cross A1. So B2 should be perpendicular to both A3 and A1. So B2 should be perpendicular to this. These are the, I'll repeat again. So here we are considering the interplanar separation of A2. So the planes run like this. The planes run like this. So the dots appear perpendicular to the plane. Dots appear perpendicular to the planes. So the planes will be always parallel to the other vector, A1 vector, which means this B2 vector and A1 vector will be perpendicular. If there is an A3 vector, the same argument applies here. So the B2 vector will be perpendicular to both A1 and A3. So, and the magnitude will be inversely proportional to the A2. So we consider this inversely proportional relation 1 by A2, and it should be perpendicular to both A3 and A1. Okay. So we consider this, but we only need the magnitude. So the magnitude is only depending on the inverse of this interplanar separation A2 vector. That's given by the A2 vector. So A2 cross, sorry, it should be A3 cross A1. Fine. So this is the equation. So another point to note is, say we take this is my A2 vector, this is my A2 vector, and this is my A1 vector. So if I take A1 cross A2, this will be the area of this parallelogram. If there is some other vector A3 and I dot it A3 times this, that will give the area of, sorry, the volume of this whole parallelepiped. So the denominator here is actually a1 dot a23 cross a3, and a2 dot a3 cross a3 is the volume of the unit cell here we consider. So it can be in other ways, it can be written like this. This is the volume of the unit cell, 1 by this is a3 a1, and this is a uniform unit cell. Okay. So the only important thing that you have to understand, how did we get this equation? How did we get this equation? Okay, so we consider the separation vector is a2, so the diffraction, the spots will be separated by inversely to the separation vector. That will go like a2, 1 by a2, and it should be perpendicular to both a1 and a3. So we consider a vector that is a3 cross a1, that will be perpendicular to both a1 and a3, and we just need the magnitude. So we take a dot product in the denominator. Okay, so this particular term a3 cross a1 divided by magnitude of a3 cross a1. This will be the n cap. That will be a unit vector perpendicular to the direction a1 and a3. Okay. So now let's jump into the question. If I remember correctly, there was a question in GATE 2010. That question, they have given some real lattice vectors. That is a1 is equal to 2 I cap and a2 is equal to I cap plus 2j cap. And they asked you to find this reciprocal vectors, what is b1 and b2 vector. Okay, so first we have to find the equation. We know the equation by hand. So b1 vector, so separation vector. So let's get a pictorial idea of what this actually means. So if say this is my x-axis, that is j direction, and this is my I direction. So the first atom will come, if this is origin, at a distance of 2 in I axis or x axis, and this a2 will appear at I plus 2j. So this will be I, this is 2i, right? This is I, 1i, and 2 units up. So this will be the other atom. So another atom will come over here. So next atom will come over here, it will come over here. It will be going like this. This will be 4. Okay. So this is somewhat qualitatively similar to the case we have considered here. Here a1 and a2 are magnitude wise same, a1 and a2 are magnitude wise same, but this a2 is greater in the given problem. So qualitatively the direction will be same, only the separation between these dots will be changing. Okay. So you can understand actually. So there is some change in this crystal structure that will correspondingly reflect in this diffraction spots, and you shine the light, you observe the diffraction spot, and you can understand there is some change in the crystal lattice. Okay. So here we have this problem. So we want to find what b1 and b2 will be. So we write down the equation. So for b1, the separation between dots or the reciprocal lattice points will be inversely proportional to the separation a1. Okay, a1, and here that b1 should be perpendicular to both the direction of a2 and a3. a2 and a3. So there is no a3 in this case, but we can actually consider it. Even if we consider a3, the a3 cross a2 and a2 cross a3 all will lie in this plane. So there is nothing harmful or nothing not allowed to consider this a3 as k vector. So we'll introduce an a3 that is k vector that comes out of the plane. So here this b1 vector should be perpendicular to both a2 and a3. So we take the cross product a2 cross a3, and here we take the dot product a2 cross a3. Okay, and here, so in case of b2, the value should be inversely proportional to the vector, separation vector, that is a2 vector, and it should be perpendicular to both a3 and a1. So a3 cross a1, and here the dot product a3 cross a1. So we have the equation. It's quite simple to calculate. So I'll write it again. So our a1 here is 2 I cap, a2 here is I plus 2j cap, and a3 here is k cap. Fine. So in case of b1, first we are going to find b1. So this is the equation. So wait, I'll just rewrite it. Yeah, b1. So it's 1 by, so I'll just leave the 1 a2 cross a3 These are all vectors, okay? There is a vector sign. I'm just leaving it out. A1 dot A2 cross A3. So first thing that we need to find is A2 cross A3. So A2 cross A3. A2 cross A3. What is A2 cross A3? A2 is like I plus 2j, I plus 2j, and A3 is k cap, cross k cap. So finding the cross product, you can use this rule. This simple picture A, J, K, this triangle. So from this picture, we can see that I cross j is k, k cross I is j, and if we move in the reverse direction, that is I cross k. If we move in the reverse direction, that will be minus k. Okay. So here we have to have I cross j. I cross j is k plus j cross k. J cross k is I. 1 second. So I made a mistake here. Sorry about that. So here I cross k we have to find. I cross k moves in the opposite direction, so that will be minus j. So here we have to find j cross k. J cross k is I. So there's a 2 already here, so that will be 2i. Then for the denominator, we have to find a1 dot a2 cross a3. What is a1? A1 is 2i. 2i dotted with minus j plus 2i. Okay, so I dot j is 0, so that will be 0, and 2i dot 2i is 4. Okay, so here the b1 value of b1 will be a2 cross a3, that is 2i minus j, and what is a1 dot a2 cross a3, that is 4. So this is a value of b1 vector. This is a value of b1 vector, and that's given here. So that this will be the direction, particular direction, and this is perpendicular to both a2 and a3 as well. A3 anyway comes out of the plane, so it's obvious that b1 is perpendicular to a3. Okay, so the magnitude, only the magnitude will vary here compared to this picture. So now we go to the case of b2 vector. b2 will be inversely proportional to a2 dot, and will be perpendicular to both a3 and a1 dot a3 cross a1. So first we need to find a3 cross a1, a3 cross a1. So what is a3 cross a? A3 is k vector. A3 is k vector cross with a1. What is a1? 2i. It's quite simple. 2i. So again we draw this picture. I, j, k. We draw the triangle. So what do we need to find? K cross I. K cross I is j. So it's simple. 2j. Then we need the denominator, that is a2 dot a3 cross a1. So what is a2? A2 is I plus 2j. I plus 2j, isn't it? Dotted with 2j itself. I dot j is 0, 2j dot 2j is 4. So from here, that's okay. So just so avoiding confusion, I'm just removing this one, okay? So a3 cross a1 is 2j divided by a2 dot a3 cross a1, that is 4. So this value will be j by 2 and j by 2. So the b2 should be lying in the y direction. As you can see, the b2 actually lies in the y direction, and b2 is perpendicular to a1. Okay, fine. So we get from a1 and a2, we can actually calculate b1 and b2. Fine. So that's it. Now we move on to the other topic. How we represent the planes, how we represent the separation between the planes. Okay.